please don't skip this video. If these words touch your heart, take a moment to subscribe, like, and share. By doing so, you're helping spread the word of Jesus and reach someone who is waiting for hope today. Stay with us until the end. God may have a special message, a blessing, or an answer to your prayers just for you. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. May God bless you abundantly, fill your life with His peace, and answer the desires of your heart. Amen.
So, what does it look like when a whole society just hits rock bottom? I'm talking complete, total collapse. Well, that's exactly what we're jumping into with the ancient Book of Ezekiel. It's this incredible and honestly sometimes really shocking story about that very thing. But more than that, it's about how a community can actually find a blueprint to rebuild itself from the ashes. Let's get into it. And that really is the big question, right? It's the question at the very heart of this entire book. And, it feels so relevant, even for us today. The amazing thing is, this ancient text doesn't just ask the question. It actually lays out a powerful step-by-step answer. It's a journey, really, that goes from judgment and consequence all the way to this completely unexpected vision of hope.
So to get our heads around this whole journey, we've got to start with the man at the center of it all, the prophet Ezekiel.
So who was this guy Ezekiel?
Well, he's got this kind of dual identity. On the one hand, he's a priest, part of the whole religious establishment. But that's not his reality anymore. He's actually an exile living in Babylon, and God calls him to be a watchman. Now, what's a watchman? It's the guy on the wall whose job is to see the danger coming from miles away and to shout a warning. And that's Ezekiel's job, even if he's pretty sure nobody's going to listen.
The whole book unfolds in this really clear three-part journey. First up, it's all about judgment on Israel for the rebellion. It's a really sharp, focused look at their own mistakes. Then the story kind of zooms out. It starts talking about judgment on all the nations around them, which is a powerful reminder that this isn't all happening in a bubble. And then, right when you think it's all over, boom, a total pivot to this surprising vision of future restoration. Okay, so when it came to his warnings, Ezekiel didn't just give speeches. No way. What he did was more like intense performance art. It was all designed to make the consequences of what the people were doing feel completely, shockingly real.
And look at how far he went. You have to imagine how this looked people back then. Lying on his side for 430 days, that's over a year. It was like he was a living statue, physically showing the nation's paralysis under the weight of its own sin. And then cooking his food over dung. For a priest who was all about purity, that's just unthinkable. It was this gut punch of a symbol for the impurity and suffering that was on its way. And finally, shaving his head and beard. A priest's hair was part of his sacred vow. Shaving it all off was an act of total public shame, a visual scream that Jerusalem's glory was about to be cut down.
So, did these crazy warnings work? Nope. Nobody listened. And that brings us to the absolute lowest point in this whole story. The moment God's glory departs. This is the ultimate consequence, the very thing Ezekiel was trying so hard to prevent.
So in this vision, Ezekiel is basically transported back to Jerusalem. He gets a front row seat to what's happening inside the temple, the most sacred place on earth for his people. And what he sees is just horrifying. It's filled with idols, with all kinds of corrupt worship. The leaders, the people, everyone's in on it. The one place that was supposed to be completely holy has become the headquarters for their rebellion against God.
And that leads to this absolutely tragic moment. Ezekiel watches as God's divine presence, the very glory they believed lived in the temple, literally gets up and leaves. It just abandons the city. This is rock bottom. The connection is gone. It's over.
And honestly, you'd think that's the end of the story, right? Judgment delivered. The end. But no. It's right here, in this moment of absolute darkness, that the book makes its most famous and surprising turn toward the Valley of Dry Bones. Because, as it turns out, the story doesn't end there, not even close. After the news comes that Jerusalem has actually fallen, Ezekiel's job description completely flips. He's no longer the prophet of doom. Now he's the prophet of a future that no one, and I mean no one, could have ever imagined.
So Ezekiel has this vision, and he's standing in a valley that's just filled with bones, dry, scattered, sun-bleached human bones. It's basically a giant open graveyard, the perfect picture of a nation that is completely and totally dead. And then a voice asks him this question, the question that changes everything. Can these bones live? And the answer seems so obvious, right? Look at them. Of course not. They're dead as it gets. But then
the impossible happens. You hear this rattling sound as the bones start clicking together. Sinews and flesh start to grow over them, and then God's breath, His Spirit, enters them, and they stand up, a vast, living army. The symbolism here is just so powerful and clear, right? The dry bones, that's the dead nation of Israel, scattered in exile. The breath or spirit, that's God's power to bring life back from nothing. And that vast army, that's the promise of a resurrected, unified nation.
And this isn't just about politics or getting their land back. This is about something way deeper. It's a promise of a fundamental internal transformation. God says He's going to replace their heart of stone, that hard, rebellious, stubborn nature, with a heart of flesh, a living heart, one that's responsive and obedient, all because it's going to be filled with a totally new spirit.
So, with this promise of a new heart and a new spirit, the book doesn't just end there. It actually gives them a literal blueprint for what this new future is going to look like. It's a detailed vision for a whole new community.
At the heart of this vision is a new temple, a perfect one. And, this is the crucial part, the divine glory that left the old temple, it comes back. It returns to fill this new one. And all those really detailed measurements Ezekiel writes down, they're not just for architects, they're a symbol of a new divine order. They represent restored holiness and a promise that God is coming back to live among His people for good.
And so that brings us right back to where we started. The Book of Ezekiel is this incredible story of a community that lost literally everything because it had completely lost its way. And their path back wasn't just about surviving, it was about getting a whole new vision, a new blueprint for their future, one that was built around the restored presence of God. And that leaves us with a pretty big question to think about. When a culture truly hits rock bottom, what kind of vision, what kind of blueprint is powerful enough to actually bring it back to life?